Amen. It's a joy to sit with those who are youngest in our midst and talk as children about what it means to be loved. It's a real privilege that we have when we're raised in a family that looks after our needs. We know plenty of children on this earth who are neglected and who are abused and who are left out. But when our children are brought together and shown their place in God's house and given voice among God's people, we are raising up the church that knows it can trust God for what we need day in and day out. When we sit together and lift up the lives of the children of God, those who are young and those who are young in heart, there we begin to taste and see that the Lord is good. It hasn't always been that way for God's people, though. We hear the temper tantrums and the hissy fits that we throw as children of the Lord when it doesn't go our way. We've been there. We've experienced it. Some of us have experienced watching it in others. When the people that God has saved from slavery, captivity, and bondage in Egypt walk out in freedom, headed toward a promised land with God in their midst, meeting their every need, and yet the people say, Lord, this isn't what I signed up for. I would rather be back in my flesh pot in Egypt, and you might as well have let me die there because I had cucumbers. And I'd rather have a cucumber on my terms than a future on yours. God's people throw this fit every once in a while. God's people gathered on a hillside in Galilee, and they were starving, and Jesus had compassion on them and fed them. Quite literally fed them. And instead of tasting and seeing that the Lord was good, they saw that the Lord was powerful. They saw that the Lord was a good person to have on your team. They wanted to take him by force and make him king. They chased him away. And the next morning when they woke up, they looked around and they realized that Jesus wasn't where they left him. Do you remember what it's like to be a child when things aren't where you think you left them? And the people again throw this temper tantrum. And they take boats and they go searching for Jesus. And when they find him, they say, Rabbi, you didn't stay put where we left you. We wanted to make you king. We wanted to make you our leader. We wanted you on our side. What are you doing somewhere else? Jesus says to them, I wanted you to taste and see that the Lord is good, but all you saw was that the Lord is valuable. All you saw was that the Lord meets your desires and your wants. I am not the face of a God who is a magic card in your deck. I am not the face of a God who gives you what you want so that your life can be easier compared to the people around you. I want you to taste and see that the Lord is not about power and status and stature. The Lord is good. The people say, good. You want to know about good? Way back in the past, God gave us what we wanted. Quail at night, manna in the morning. What will you do for us to show that you care about us so much? Can't you just imagine Jesus sitting there scratching his head? Because it was less than a day before that he was feeding them. Have you ever felt like those people? Have you ever seen the church rise up in that kind of tantrum? Have you ever seen me stand beside you as one of God's conflicted children? This is part of our human nature. We want God, we want to trust God, we want to love God, but we also want God to operate on our terms. And it's so difficult when the Lord is something beyond our control. But Jesus says to us over and over, I am the real deal. I am the bread of life. I'm given for you so that you will not hunger. I am given for you so that you will not thirst. Taste and see that the Lord is good. And if the Lord is good, then you can trust that when you put your foot out in the exile desert, that God will still be with you. If you can taste and see that the Lord is good, then you know when you wake up in the morning and God isn't what you thought, that the Lord will still be on your side. You can face tomorrow. You can truly face the mountain of distress under your feet because the Lord who promises to love you in the name of God will not leave you abandoned. This is the only word you have. Trust that the one God sent into your life, Jesus Christ, the Word made flesh, is here so that you will have a future. When the people of the world stand up against God, throwing that immature hissing fit, we hear from our second lesson how it calls mouth. Jesus tells us, it's time to grow up. You're being fed. You're being nurtured. You are the children of God, held in compassionate arms. You're fed the bottle of spiritual milk that you need for your bones to grow strong so that you can stand upright. You're fed the bread of life that will give you the strength. Now stand in maturity of faith. Taste and see that the Lord is good, because there is a world waiting to hear from you. There are neighbors whose lives feel meaningless. There are family members who consider themselves abominations of the Lord beyond the reach of any decent love. There are co-workers there are classmates there are friends who are yearning for a sign that God is on their side. They can't see everything the Lord has already been doing. They're counting on God to be revealed. And a word of life, and a word made flesh, and a word in flesh in you, who have tasted and seen that the Lord is good, the Lord is kind, the Lord is faithful, and the Lord will be with us. So we gather. We gather as children of the kingdom. We gather to consider God's love poured abundantly in our lives. We gather to consider the patience of a God who says, child, if you haven't caught it yet, let me tell you once more. I am the bread of life. Those who believe in me will not perish. Go stand in the gospel and tell the world that this is true. Here in this Christ, you may taste and see. The Lord is good for you now, tomorrow, and in all ways. Amen.
Amen.